knew how to make people laugh. I knew how to get into their worlds. I would make teachers laugh as well. It's not like I was an asshole to my teachers. They'd never be like, Trevor misbehaves. They would always just say like, he likes making people laugh too much. Sometimes he needs to calm down. And this would follow me everywhere in life. I would tell jokes at parties. I would, whenever there was a group of people.
Hey YouTube, welcome to my channel, Become Successful with Yemi Osho. On this channel, you will have the privilege of listening to top 10 success tips by renowned individuals all around the world. Every episode promises to be a great one. You don't want to miss it. So, kindly subscribe to this channel, click on the notification bell so that when the next video drops, you will be able to have it. See you on the next episode. Hey, welcome back to my channel. On this channel, you'll be listening to the top 10 success tips by renowned individuals. On this episode, I bring to you a man named Trevor Noah. Trevor Noah is the host of a TV show named Daily Show. He received 6 Emmy nominations, and he is from South Africa and a resident of New York City. He has written and produced 11 comedy specials. He is the most successful comedian in Africa. He released his first book in 2016 titled Born a Crime. Relax and listen to Trevor Noah's top 10 success.
That comedy, like this is my calling, this is what I'm good at. But when did that moment hit for you, and how might we seek that moment out for ourselves?
It was the first time somebody paid me, Morgan. That's when the moment was. No, I'm joking. The first moment when I knew it was a calling was instinctively when I made people laugh for the first time. So, in school, I'd always been like the class clown. I was never the most popular kid, but I made everybody laugh. I mean, whether it was the bullies, whether it was the jocks, whether it was the nerds, I just knew how to make people laugh. I knew how to get into their worlds. I would make teachers laugh as well. It's not like I was an asshole to my teachers. They'd never be like, Trevor misbehaves. They would always just say like, he likes making people laugh too much. Sometimes he needs to calm down. And this would follow me everywhere in life. I would tell jokes at parties. I would, whenever there was a group of people gathered around, I would try and tell funny stories. And over time, I came to realize that this was something I wish I could do. But you must remember, in South Africa, we didn't have a comedy scene at that time, because of apartheid. Free speech was inhibited. And so it's not like we ever had a comedy thing. So I never dreamed of being a comedian, but I think that's when the calling hit me. And so, yeah, for the first few months of my comedy career, I did it for free. I loved it. And it only became a career when somebody paid me for the first time. Then I was like, oh, wow, I can actually try and do what I love for a living. And that, as they say, the rest is history. My show, when you watch my TV show, whatever you do, I want you to leave feeling a little bit better than when you came in. And that's because I love that. I love going to comedy shows where I laugh and I enjoy myself and I go like, man, that was fun. And then I'm laughing on the way home and I'm trying to tell the jokes to my friends the next day. That for me is what I'm looking for. And that's what I try and give to an audience. I think comedy on a larger scale for me is also about speaking truth. Comedy for me has always been that place where it's like, we can talk about the uncomfortable truths. We can talk about racism while laughing with people. We can talk about misogyny while laughing with people. We can talk about some of the more uncomfortable things in society and hopefully poke holes and reveal some of the light that comes through those holes while using comedy to I guess, lessen the burden that the audience is feeling. So instead of it just being a lecture about like, oh, this is why racism is bad, it's using comedy in such a way where somebody's sitting in the audience and they're like, man, I never thought of it like that. Yeah, actually, racism is pretty stupid. I got to think about these things. I got to figure that out. Oh, yeah, actually, why do we have toxic masculinity as men? This is holding us back. Maybe we should try and figure, but it's like, how do you figure out how to play with that and tell the truth? And so for me, comedy is oftentimes a tool that I will use to subvert what society has accepted as normal, or the standard, or the status quo, because that's oftentimes what happens in societies. We just accept something as being normal, and then at some point, as a comedian, you go like, guys, this is not normal. You realize that, right? This is not actually normal. We've just done it for so long. And so I enjoy those aspects of comedy, and I think that's the role that comedy fills in my life and what I try to do with it in the world. Put that lesson into two. Number one, not all risks are worth taking. And what I mean by that is, sometimes I understand that the risk may not even be to myself, but it may be to the subject of the comedy, or the unintended consequences of the comedy that I'm saying. And so what I realize is, I go, if I'm trying to tell this joke and it may come off the wrong way, let me try and spend more time not telling it and figuring out how to clean up the what I like to call the targets of the joke, and then minimize the risk, if I can call it that. Because I can't control how people feel about jokes. Everyone can be offended about anything. I don't believe in like going, oh, if you're offended, oh, I'm sorry. No, you can be offended by anything I say. And if you are offended, I didn't intend to offend you. And because offense is taken, I have no control over your offense. What I do know is travel has not just influenced, it's shaped my perspective. Travel for me is a humbling experience if you do it, because it will show you that the world is bigger than your world. It'll also show you that every idea you have that you accept as dogma is in fact just an idea. And so when you travel, you start to realize that most of the rules we learn as human beings are just societal structural ideas that have been imparted on us by our parents or our forefathers. But when you go somewhere else, they're like, no, we just don't do that, and I think that that's humbling. And I think it's also informative, because it tells you and it teaches you that the way you think the world isn't. It's just the way your world is. And so whether it's learning that somewhere out there, people are just like, nah, English, who gives a damn about English? And you're like, oh, but English. And they're like, no, we don't care. And you're like, but how do you do things? And they're like, yeah, we don't care. We speak other languages. That's humbling. You go to another place where they go like, oh, this is what we do. This is how we eat. We eat with our hands, or this is how we speak, or this is how we laugh, or this is how we dance, or this is how we communicate, everything. And I think that's a humbling experience. That's why I truly enjoy it, because I think it gives you a sense of understanding that everybody is generally coming from a perspective in the world that they think is correct because they've learned it. But in fact, there is no one correct way to do anything, unless it's science. Everything else, we've just applied with a veneer of the way it's supposed to be. Let's relook everything the way we've been forced to relook everything. Let's relook work. Do people need to be in the office 5 days a week? I think we've realized that they don't need to be. If possible, people can work from home when they need to. It can be better for your mental health. It can be better for traffic on the roads. It can be better for parents who need to stay home and look after their kids when they're sick. It could be better for everybody in society. We realize now that it's possible.
Where, as many of you know, the apartheid laws restricted freedom of speech. Everything from songs that were deemed to be political through to comedy that was expressly political. I didn't have much access to satire. I did not grow up knowing that you could say whatever you wanted about your government. And I was lucky that when I was young, apartheid ended. And I started seeing people saying what they felt. I started seeing people expressing who they were, speaking out about what was happening around them. And the most magical thing I saw them do was they made people laugh while doing it. And laughter for me has always been a powerful tool, because I always believe it is the core essence of who we are. It reminds us of who we are as human beings. You're not afraid when you're laughing. You're no longer in shock when you're laughing. It truly is just you at your core. It's why your laugh sounds as ugly as it does. And I always loved that. I always loved the power of humor. I loved how people could use it to disarm those who would perceive them to be enemies. I loved how people could use it to bring people together towards a common goal. I remember one of the first moved from South Africa. You know, a friend of mine said to me, "So you're going to America now to host the Daily Show?" And I said, "Yeah, you know, I'm looking forward to the change. You know, I've lived in a country for so long where we have a leader who has completely disregarded all of the norms and practices of what made this nation what it is today, and a leader who has enriched his family through unscrupulous means and continues to diminish everything that we have built this nation upon." And I said, "I'm looking forward to a break from that. I'm going to a first world country." And freedom enables the comedy. The comedy is a byproduct of that freedom. When you have the comedy, then you know that you have a certain element, you have a certain amount of freedom. And that's something that I appreciate every single day. And so I thank you for allowing me to be in this room with some of the most amazing satirists around the world who work in environments far more hostile than I ever dream of working in. You know, Hussein, who spoke his stories now, and Nkechi, I'm a huge fan of yours. I don't know where you are in the room, but I loved watching the show in Nigeria, and I love the stories that the show has told.
Do you feel responsible to advocate for other immigrants through your company?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Americans use the term immigrant so broadly, and it's interchangeable. When people say immigrants in America, a lot of the time what they're talking about is a person who comes here from Mexico. You know, people don't think of Chris Hemsworth as an immigrant. So when people say immigrants in America, I've noticed that the terminology specifically refers to a certain type of person who many people perceive having a certain backstory and journey and purpose in America. But I look at everyone. Justin Bieber's an immigrant. You know what I mean? So Drake is an immigrant. Yeah. Exactly. So I don't think I've ever thought of it in that way. What I do think about when I'm creating my comedy is trying to connect to the most honest and human experience. You know, I think, you know, as people, we have a tendency to feel when it applies to us or people close to us, and as soon as we're out of the danger or out of we're in the shade, then we start going like, I don't know about those people, I don't know about those people. And so for me, what I'm constantly trying to do is go, are we having an honest conversation about these people with regards to how America, treats them? And I think that's what I'm always trying to do, and it's changed in my life because I learn things, I haven't always held the views that I've held. I haven't always been informed.
Future of people of color and African-American representation in media?
I think you have to break it down into different levels. When looking at Black people being represented on screen, Black Americans represented on screen, Black people represented on screen, you have to break it down into what's happening behind the camera, what's happening in front of the camera, what's happening in the boardrooms that control the world of cameras. Because those are all the pieces that define the world that we live in. And I think you can operate with a bit of nuance in this world, which people often don't enjoy because it is more difficult. I think we have to say that as Black creatives and as Black creators, we have an obligation to our own to create our stories. And again, it's not about saying, hey, white people, you're excluded. It's about saying, no, hey, let's take pride in telling our stories the same way for so long Hollywood and its original creators took pride in telling their stories. Mm-hmm. Just tell a story.
Hello, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Top 10 Success Tips by Trevor Noah. The next episode promises to be a great one. I want you to share this video, comment on it, and make recommendations for who you want to see next on the Top 10 Success Tips. Kindly subscribe. Click on the notification bell so that anytime a new video drops, you will be notified, and share and recommend to your friends. Thank you. See you on the next episode.